Hello, this is Amira, and I'm here to do a walkthrough of the tarot deck that I'm going to be diving into in July. This is the Gorgon's Tarot. I'm not sure when this deck was released. It has been around for a few years already, I do know that, but it is new to me. I picked it up after researching tarot decks in different shapes. I was intrigued by that idea and I thought, are there any round decks out there? And lo and behold, I narrowed it down to a couple of options. And once I saw a walkthrough of this one, I decided it was the one for me. I ordered it directly from the publisher because that meant I was able to get both this full-size version, which you can see right here. It is huge, which, don't get me wrong, I like big decks and I cannot lie, but I knew that that was going to be a challenge to attempt to shuffle and work with that deck. Oh, it's so beautiful though. So I got this version because it came with this regular size version in the box, and then it also came with a shrink wrapped smaller version of the deck, and the smaller version is 4.5 inches, and that makes it much more manageable, especially when you're working with spreads. There's also a small guidebook which was created by the artist, and I really enjoy the black and white color of this deck. As you can see, there's red on this card. There's actually red on 2 cards in the deck, but the rest of them are black and white. You can see there how much smaller the small version is. And honestly, 4.5 inches is not exactly small, but it definitely gives you a sense of how much bigger the full-size version is. I'm going to go ahead and unwrap this, and then we will do a walkthrough. I'm excited to check this out. I'm taking off the plastic. Again, I have to apologize. The sound in this one did not work right, so that's why I'm doing a voiceover. I'm hoping to get that figured out pretty soon because honestly, part of the pleasure of watching tarot tube videos is hearing the sound of the cards themselves as they're being brushed up against each other, as they're being shuffled. I just love that sound and I miss it. I miss it in this video. All right, well, as you can see, I'm just taking a look at a couple of these cards and then I'm going to start at the beginning. So this deck comes with one extra card. It's a card that's exclusive to this deck, and it's called the Blind Gorgon. And it is the card that is on top. The cards do stick together a bit. It's glossy cardstock. I'm going to work with it a lot this month to see if I can reduce some of that clumping. Alright, so we have the Blind Gorgon. And before I forget, let me mention that as I do deck walkthroughs, I also like to set aside cards that I really like. I always try to find my 5 or 6 favorites from each deck. It's just a fun little quirk that I do. So I set aside potential favorites and then walk through the deck card by card. After I do that, then I pull out that third pile and look through the cards to narrow it down to that special 5 or 6 that are my faves. So now we're going to zoom in a little bit. This is still a big deck, so so it's gonna fill this screen here. That's the Blind Gorgon. Now we've got the Fool, which I really like. There's definitely RWS inspiration in this deck, but I do like that we have these fun animal companions. And you'll see similar animals throughout the different cards too, which for an animal lover like me is really great. Now we have the Magician. And you saw on cards like the Fool that the lines are really crisp. This is not so crisp, and I thought that was really interesting. It kind of represents that sort of mystical, indescribable energy that comes from the Magician. So I really loved the different and unique way that the line work was done on this figure. That was really striking to me. Now you can see the back of the card. It is a snake, which I really like. All right, now we have got the High Priestess. The Emperor. And then I realized, oh no, I've got clumping card problems. So I'm going to pull that aside. No, they're still stuck together, so I'm pulling the Empress apart here. There we go. There's the Empress. And then the Emperor. The Hierophant. One thing that I really appreciate about these cards is just how much detail there is in them. And the Lovers. This one is just so beautiful. It's such a unique depiction. So you'll often see, the angel above the two lovers, but in this case, you get a very different perspective. You get a side perspective. So that is going to go in my potential favorites. And I have to set that up to the top because there is just no room at the side because this deck is so big. Now we're at the Chariot. And again, like I was saying, there are just so many details in lots of these cards. Some are more complicated than others, of course, but I really like the fact that it has the different details. Like the previous card, the Chariot had fireworks to the left and right of the figure. Here we've got the woman and the lion, but there's also some other little critters hanging around. And now we've got the Hermit. And this card, oh, I love the idea that the lines, it's kind of like a spiral, and it sort of suggests that the hermit is in a cave. But the thing that I really found interesting about this depiction is the mirror. Kind of reflects the solitary nature of the hermit, so I definitely liked that. Now we have the wheel. A lot going on this wheel. I thought it was interesting that we have the figure kind of resting in the center line rather than resting on top or somewhere else on the wheel. Here's Justice. The Hanged One. Death, which I thought was pretty amusing. You've got twins of death dancing together. I thought that was fun. I'm trying to decide, am I putting this in the favorite pile or am I not? Decisions. Now we have Temperance. And now we have the second card that has red added to the mix of black and white. And it's the Devil. And my goodness, those big eyes. I find that really piercing, and this depiction on the card is really striking. The hand, too. So I'm going to go ahead and add that to the favorites. The Tower. Now, I have to say that as I'm looking at this now, I'm more struck by the Tower than I was the first time I went through it. I don't know. I feel like all those arrows coming from that main figure, they're just really interesting. Here's the Star. Really beautiful figure. Now the Moon. The Sun. Judgment. We've definitely got a big crowd here. Those 7 stars across the top are quite interesting. Here's the World. Very beautiful. And now we're at the Ace of Wands. Here's 2 of Wands. Three. And one thing that I pointed out the first time that as I was filming this is the way I love how there are so many different textures. I mean, this is a black and white card or a black and white deck, so it can be challenging to like try to add, depth or to create images that seem multidimensional, but I really like the way that this artist just creates all of the texture by using different patterns all over the card. That's one of the things that make it really, really rich and interesting. Some of the cards were face up and some were face down, and right there I just decided I'll figure that out later. I'll fix that later. So that was the 4. This is the 5. And I thought this depiction of the 5 was quite interesting, because usually you see, 5 figures kind of fighting with the wands, but here it's almost like they're dancing. I guess it's a matter of interpretation, really, but I thought, yeah, it did not look to me like they were fighting or there was conflict. What do you think? I'm curious. All right, there's the 6. And now we've got the 7. And here's the 8, which I have to say I adored. I love the fact that there's still movement that's suggested with this card, with all of these wands, but it's not the traditional diagonal going from one side to the other. So I really liked the way that was drawn. So that's going to go in the potential favorites. Now we've got the 9 of Wands. Here's the 10 of Wands. And onto the Court. Here's the Page. The Knight. The Queen. And the King. This figure reminds me of somebody, and I'm not sure who. But I feel like I've seen him in a movie or something. Okay, now we are at swords. And I definitely am always very curious to see how the swords are depicted. Here, in a way, we have a fairly conventional 3 swords interlocking a heart. They aren't piercing the heart, though. And what's interesting to me is that we have that going on at the top, but then we have a figure at the bottom who's just kind of looking at it. It's an interesting depiction. Like they aren't involved in what's happening to the heart. They're looking back on it later. Okay, now on to the 4. She's not conventionally resting or, sleeping, but she's kind of chilling. Just chilling there. This 5 of Swords I also found very interesting. So with the 5 of Swords, it can be you may have won, but at what cost? And I think this notion of, okay, I've got these 4 swords and here's one that's going through me, ow, kind of depicts that really well. That's going to go in the potential favorites. Here's the 6 of Swords. I like how the swords are alongside. They're on the shore, maybe, because the way that's depicted, they were too small really to be on the boat. There's the 7, the 8, she might be trapped, but she's got her little companion there. The 9, it's a little like the 8 of Wands, where you have the different images pointing toward the center. And then here's the 10. Not a very gruesome 10, and that's fine. Do not have an issue with that. And here we have the Page. More fireworks. The Knight. The Queen. And the King. Now we're on to the Cups. I like how that king has a winking golden shepherd. Or sorry, not golden shepherd, German shepherd. Or maybe it's a husky, depending on how you want to view it, I guess. All right. Ace of Cups. 2. They look quite happy, don't they? Under the starry sky there. 3. It's another group that looks quite happy. Here's a 4. Looks pretty happy with the 3 cups she has. Doesn't necessarily need the 4th one. 5 of Cups. Kind of fell in love with all the different textures in this one. There's like the stream, and I really like how the stream is, or the river is there too. Here we have the 6. What's interesting about this one is that it's a bit hard to tell who is the main figure in that one. The 7. I did love this one quite a bit. Can tell that there's a lot on that one's mind. 8 of Cups. 9. 10. And there's the page. I do like it with that 10. There's a great sense of community. It's not just here parents and 2 kids. It's a sense of this is a group of people. Okay, here's the Knight. The Queen. Thought it was interesting that she's a mermaid. And the King. And then we move on to the Pentacles. Here's the Ace, who's holding a little child. That was interesting. Here's the 2. This looks very evenly balanced, doesn't it? 3. Very industrious and working hard. 4. This figure looks very closed off and isolated, which I thought brought an interesting level to the 4. Here's the 5 of Pentacles. 6. 7. 8. 'Now we've got the 9. I love how they're growing on that tree. That tree that she is so carefully tended to. The 10. This is a very happy card. Now here's the page. The Knight. Queen. And the King. Any card that's going to show Saturn, I'm going to love. Oh, what can I say? All right, so there are these cards. I'm going to set them aside. Zoom out so I can spread out the cards as I choose the favorite. And now I'm going back in and finding which direction they go. Here we go. That should solve it for me. Okay, zoom out. And it's time to narrow down to 5 or 6 favorites. And I have a good number of choices here. I've got 8 possibles. So I'm going to choose. Usually I start by choosing the ones that are my obvious favorites. And then I try to eliminate some. So I'm going to choose the Lovers as a favorite. That's definitely going in that pile. So is the Devil. I like that 7. This 5, as much as I like it, it's still a fairly conventional depiction. I mean, I love all of the different textures, but I felt like I wanted to stick with the ones that seemed more unique to me. All right, now I'm deciding how many have I got here. And I have 5. No, wait, do I? What do I? So I'm going to go ahead and set these aside and call these my favorites. We have the 8 of Wands, the Hermit, the 7 of Cups, the Devil, and the Lovers. All right, now it's time to do some shuffling and see how that works. So I'm going to blend it all in. We'll see. I'm not the best shuffler. I look forward to the day when I don't have to add that disclaimer, when I can say, I'm a pretty good shuffler. But I'm not the greatest shuffler. I'll admit it right now. But I'm giving it a good old try. So I do shuffle this several times, but I cut out some of that because you don't need to see 72 shuffles or whatever. 72 shuffles for 78 cards. Or in this case, 79 cards, because I do have an extra card here. It's unique to this deck. I'm going to do a bit of overhand, which isn't doing me much good. I mean, you can kind of see they're clumping really badly with the overhand. Like, I feel like they clump a little less when I do the riffle shuffling. All right, so I've done more shuffling off camera, and now I'm just going to set down this card. And I'm going to bring in the guidebook. Which I'm really sorry that, again, that the sound did not work. So, yeah, I go ahead and feel free to pause this so you can read the card for yourself if you like. Once I get there, it takes me a minute. It took me a little bit to figure out how this worked actually, because there's the major arcana, and then they talk about, okay, here are the different suits and how they work. Here are the numbers and how they work. And then after that, they went into, okay, here's each individual card. So yeah, it took me a little while to figure this out. Seven of Wands. Go ahead and pause that if you like. Time to zoom out again and do more shuffling because I'm going to do a 3-card draw. That's just how I kind of break in a new deck. So I do the walkthrough, choose my favorites, shuffle for a bit, see how I like the touch and feel of the cards. And then I do the readings. Start with the 1 card, then do the 3 card. I usually cut the deck before I choose the 3rd card. So here we go. We've got an Ace of Wands, the Fool, and the King of Pentacles. All right, that is this deck. I'm going to be using it for the rest of July. I've already done a few readings, but I'll share those along the way, and then of course give you a recap or share additional thoughts at the end. This small deck doesn't fit in the box. That box just holds the larger deck and the guidebook, so I went ahead and ordered a specially made bag for this deck. I got this black and gold fabric and then had pops of red, which I just love. So I'm actually keeping the guidebook out for this month at least. And now that I've got the deck in a bag, it's very easy to take with me. I just put the bag in my purse, and sometimes I do my readings on the road. Not while I'm driving, of course, but while I'm out and about. So do you have this deck? If so, how do you like it? How are you using it? Do you like the shape? Does it become less clumpy with time? Let me know. Also, do you have any decks that are in different shapes than the conventional rectangle? Curious about that too, so feel free to answer that in the comments. So that is the Gorgon's Tarot, and I'll be back in a bit with more thoughts about it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back again soon. Until then, take care.